born January 17, yeah.
So you're 102 as well as our other guest, Richard.
Oh, is
Inland.
that right? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Very young 102-year-olds, I'd say.
Well, yes, right, yeah.
Yeah.
There's
So we
yeah,
know you were with the 100th Bomb Group in the last sort of 9 months or so of the war. Uh,
that's right, yeah.
when did you join the military and how did you get involved? How did you get to the 100th Bomb Group?
Well, I didn't actually join the military. I got an invitation from the president, yeah.
You were
And
invited.
yeah, well, I wanted to join right after Pearl Harbor. I went down to the Navy and I was going to join up with the Navy, but I was 17 at the time. And so I had to get my parents to sign it. And I had a half year of high school to do yet. So I said, no, you're going to have to finish high school before you sign up. Well, then something else, once I finished high school, something else got involved and I didn't get out and join then. And until I got my invitation in June of 43, it was, yeah.
Okay. And how'd you find your way to the Army Air Corps?
Well, that was just a lucky deal. When I went into the reception unit at out here at Fort Snelling, they were selecting people for the Army, the Navy, and the Marines. And I thought at the time, I said, well, maybe I'd like to try the Marines. But they looked it up and they said, well, we've got all the people we need for the Marines today, so you're going to go in the Army. And luckily, I was assigned to a base at an Air Corps base in Lincoln, Nebraska, where I did my uh, basic training. And then, of course, during basic training, they wanted to know if anybody wanted to join the cadet program. And I said, sure, I'll give it a try. So I went in the cadet program during basic training. And after that, it was a continuation of, went through a university program for about 4 months, I think, about a quarter of university training. And then we went out to Santa Ana, California, where we did a classification, they called it. Yeah. They classified you whether or not you're going to be a pilot or navigator or bombardier or something. And I was originally in the pilot program, but then there weren't anybody who was nobody was volunteering for navigator. So they said they went through all the records and they picked out the people with the highest scores and they sent us to navigation school. And so, so
The smart ones got to be navigators.
yeah, I always enjoy telling the story when to other pilots. I said I was just too smart to be a pilot. Yeah,
That's actually true. That
yeah.
actually did
Well,
happen. They would deliberately wash out pilots and make them navigators if they
is that
thought
right?
yes, yes.
Oh, okay, all right. So
Jim, that's Todd D. Pastino speaking. He's our fearless leader. He's the
okay,
executive director of the founder and the executive director of the Veterans Breakfast Club.
okay, excellent. Yeah. Hi, Todd.
Hello.
Yeah. So anyway,
Did you like being a navigator? Did that fit you well?
well, yeah, I actually I decided it was probably the better thing that I became a navigator because I kind of realized later that there was a few things I'd probably fallen short on if I'd been a pilot. I happened to notice one thing, especially when I was in like basic training, I always had a tough time keeping in step with the rest of the troop. So I was I had a kind of lag in my timing. So I thought, well, my timing would have probably been a little off for being a pilot too, so or something. But and then of course later I think I was when I was 78 years old, I took up pilot training, and I found out that it was nothing more boring than being a pilot. So I thought,
Well,
well,
maybe
when
it was
you're yeah, when you go out do a cross country and you're flying all alone, I don't know. It just seems like riding a motorcycle was more interesting. But yeah,
well, maybe you'd have felt more at home if you'd had some Germans shooting at you while you were.
well, I don't know if that was it or not. Yeah,
So how did you find yourself assigned to the 100th Bomb Group?
Well, we went over. We didn't fly over. We went over on the Queen Elizabeth, one of the big ships, and when we got to Scotland, I found out I was in the 100th Bomb Group, and I mentioned to somebody. I said, "Oh, I've been assigned to the 100th Bomb Group," and they said, "Oh, the bloody 100th." They said, and of course, the English, kind of had an idea that bloody doesn't necessarily mean derogatory all the time. Sometimes they'll use it like a compliment. So I didn't quite understand what the meaning meant at the time, until the first I think when we went into the Thorpe Abbots there about the middle of December, and then at the end of December we had a big loss. I think it was about 9 or 10 planes, and I think that was the first time I really realized what bloody meant for the 100th Bomb Group. Yeah.
You didn't know about the sort of reputation of the 100th Bomb Group when you first heard that you were assigned?
No, I hadn't heard anything about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Until after I actually got on base, and then I found out about the large number of losses that didn't have any more losses than any other unit. It's just that they came in big groups, big bunches. Yeah.
Especially early on in 42 and 43.
Right. Yeah.
So you were a replacement in the 100th Bomb Group, and you were assigned to a plane that needed a navigator?
Well, I had met up right after we had finished navigation school. I went to met up with the crew I was going to be on, and then as the crew, we had to all train in a B-17, and of course I'd never seen a B-17 during training or anything. And when they showed me the navigator's position, where they pointed out the fact that a navigator had to take care of 2 machine guns, and of course I'd never seen a machine gun before either. So the gunners kind of helped me learn how to put a shell in the chamber and things, but never had any training on a machine gun. So anyway, we went through some training in a B-17 before we got shipped overseas. Yeah. And the whole crew went over. We were all assigned to the 100th Bomb Group then. Yeah.
What was the name of your plane?
Well, the name of the plane was Lassie Come Home. Of course, we didn't know it at the time when we first got it, because apparently it must have been. I had seen some pictures of damage to the plane previously, where it was setting with the tail wheel collapse and thing, and I thought, well, maybe it had been in and had some maintenance at depot, and they'd maybe had removed the name that a previous crew had put on it, but. Anyway, I found out, much later, that Lassie Come Home was the name of the plane. Yeah.
So Nancy Putman, Nancy, let's unmute Nancy. Here she is. I see her now.
Okay.
Hi, Nancy.
Hello, Nancy.
We're not hearing you very well, Nancy.
Breaking up there.
Okay, how about that? Is that better?
That's good. Yeah. Hi, Nancy.
How are you doing, Jim?
Oh, just fine. How are you doing? Yeah.
I'm hanging in.
Well,
I put a couple of questions or comments in the chat for you. If you when you're talking about your missions, you were mentioning the December 31st mission to Hamburg that you didn't fly, but that's when they lost 12 planes.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yes.
Yeah. That was when I started to understand what bloody meant. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you also flew, and you should maybe talk about 2 of the really big missions in the final months. The February 3rd Berlin mission, when Rosie went down, you flew that one, correct?
Well, I'd have to go and take a look at my log, but I know I know there was a February mission. I think we lost about 4 planes on that mission.
And including the lead planes, and then the Buchan mission in April.
No. The which one in April?
The Buchan mission when Joe Carl Martin and Hank Cervantes' plane was struck
Oh, okay. Yeah,
over the target.
yeah, okay. Yeah. Yeah, well, yeah. Of course, yeah, none of these missions really stick very close in my mind. The Berlin one, of course, is quite close to my mind because the plane right adjacent to us uh, had, I think, it got a direct hit in the left wing or something, and the gas tanks all kind of exploded at once, and then the plane rolled over into our flight path and was heading right towards us, and that was. I think that was the scariest situation when you see another flaming airplane heading right towards you. Why? I think I got pretty chilled. I got cold, you might say,
Yes.
looking at that one. So, yeah.
So,
But then, yeah, I think that I remember one of the planes that had been hit at the same had dropped down to lower altitude, and we were counting the parachutes coming off of it. Yeah. So, or yeah, the guys jumping out. Yeah.
so Jim, by this time in the war, the formations that are flying to Germany for the most
Yeah.
are literally thousands of planes.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. In fact, yeah. Yeah.
What,
One of the, yeah.
how difficult was it as for you as a navigator to participate in that? What did you have to do as a navigator to make sure? Did you just follow the planes in front of you? What did you have to do to make sure you were, in the right place?
Well, of course, yeah, that was it. I was never a lead navigator, and of course, the primary idea was to keep track of where we were, in case we got separated, so I'd know a route to get back home again. So yeah, and so I did mostly following, and there was a few times when the lead plane would go off in some odd direction, and I never could quite figure out where he was going once in a while, even if I knew what the secondary target was. Why, it seemed to me that once in a while the lead would go off in some other direction. I never would leave me a questioning mark when I'd keep following on it. So,
So you mentioned the mission where the other plane almost crashed into you.
yeah.
Of the 33 missions you flew, were one or two others stand out in your mind as particularly dangerous to you?
Well, yeah. Actually, I flew 32 missions. My crew flew 33. I took my birthday off. Uh, actually, I ended up in the hospital. That morning I woke up with a fever, about 104 or something, and I don't know what it was because by the next day I was well again. So, but on the mission on the 17th of January, I didn't fly that one because they had a substitute navigator along with that. But so what was you were asking about the plane coming in on this one?
What other missions of yours were very memorable to you?
Well, yeah, like I said, the first mission was probably very memorable because we had, being a new crew, we ran out of oxygen while we were still flying over Germany. I think we just got the bombs away and we ran out of oxygen, and we were switching emergency tanks back and forth. I think we had 5 of them on the plane. So the pilot and the engineer, I think, had a couple tanks, and we had one up in the nose with Toggler and myself. And then the guys in the back had a couple tanks also, and we just take a few breaths off those till we got out of German territory and let down. France at the time had been, of course, occupied by the Americans, so we went down to low altitude, and that was I don't know, that'd been a kind of a screw up on some cases on that because I think there was about 5 planes in the squadron that ran short on gas that day, and we were running them, and then of course the pilot wanted to go to Berlin or to Paris. He said he doesn't have enough gas to get back to the base, but we didn't have enough gas to get back to Paris even, so he he asked me to find an airport in France somewhere, and so we ended up luckily there was I told him, I said, well, with all this there was solid cloud cover underneath us. I said that the best thing I can do is probably put you on a beacon for where you can start a intermittent letdown. And so when we hit that beacon, why then luckily there was a hole in the cloud and there was a base right underneath it. So we landed there at a place called Etaine, France. And the weather was so bad we had to stay there for 5 days. And by the time we got back to base, they said if you would have been 1 day later coming back, they probably would have sent out missing in action notices, even though we had been sending messages back through the pipeline back to the base that we were down in France, but they never received them. So, yeah.
So that was your first mission. That was pretty
That was the first mission, and that, like I said, that was one of the ones that you remember more. Some of the ones that I remember the best were the ones that were the most disappointing. You know, some of the guys remember missions that were very scaring, and of course the Berlin one was one that scared me then. And there was another time that we had to take evasion action to avoid running into another formation. That was pretty scary that time because we dove right at the very point when they released the bombs. These two squadrons were right together, so the bombs were falling from both planes, and we dove down through them. And the co-pilot, I didn't see it, but the co-pilot said he could see the bombs falling on each side of us as we dove down through there. So we luckily missed out on some of that stuff there. So
there's a couple of interesting points here that are being made in the chat. I see, Todd. A couple of people asked to be recognized. Bob, is it Bob Iyer? Bob?
Bob Iyer. Yep.
Could we unmute Bob? Bob, are you?
There's that Bob. Hi, Bob.
We're waiting for Bob to speak up.
Okay.
It's a connection Bob has here that I think is really interesting. And Bob.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, now I'm unmuted. Yeah, I noted my father-in-law was in the Bloody 100th, and I noticed on the raid on Berlin on February 3rd of 45, he was on that mission.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And I have a list here from the Navy of all his missions. And the other one, I'm doing some research on another person who was in the 100 bombardment group, Robert Kimball, who later went on and found a 500-person engineering firm. He was the lead navigator on a large raid on Frankfurt. It was like a 400-plane raid. And we're just now getting all his records.
Yeah, and the 100 bomb group was the lead group on that raid? Is that what you got there? Yeah, okay, yeah.
Did you know the name Robert Kimball? Does that name ring a bell to you, Robert Kimball?
No, it doesn't. What squadron was he in, do you know?
I think the 349th.
Oh, yeah, well, that was the same squadron I was in, yeah, but doesn't ring a bell, really, yeah. So
by a huge coincidence, Jim and Bob, I knew Bob Kimball really well. That engineering firm that he founded, L. Robert Kimball and Sons, up in
Evansburg.
My best friend was the CFO of that company, and he invited me up there a couple of times, and I got to sit in Bob's office. I don't know if you ever had the chance to. And it was like a museum to the 100th Bomb Group.
Yes.
Really?
Well, I was interviewing Bob Kimball for recognizing him at in the chapel, the Four Chaplains event. And I always like to get the personal stories of such people. So he talked about what the 100th Bombardment Group, and it sort of rang a bell.
Yeah.
So I had to do a follow-up. So I got into my father-in-law's information, and I had a picture of him when he was inducted into the Lucky Bastards Club.
Oh,
My
okay.
second visit with Bob Kimball, I took the picture with me, and he could recognize about 10 or 12 people out of about 50 that was in the picture when my father was had his Lucky Bastards Club
Oh, really? Yeah.
party. Yeah.
You know, that's kind of interesting. I know that used to be a deal where if you get 15 missions and you'd go into the Lucky Bastard Club, but I don't recall, even though we did, I did 33 and Rescue did 33, and I don't recall at the time that there was any conversation about 25 missions and then you'd belong to a certain club. Yeah. I wasn't familiar with Lucky Bastards until sometime after the war. The ball turret gunner said he had been put into that club, and I don't recall just exactly how he made his contacts with it at the time. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Bob.
On that February 3rd mission.
Oh yeah. You mean he was flying a 51 or something at the time? Yeah.
Yes.
Where's Sabrina?
Yeah. So, well, the surprising thing is that you know, during all our missions, I hardly ever saw an American airplane flying escort, because once in a while I would see maybe half a dozen of or so that were you know, way off in the distance. There was never anybody that got close to us. Of course, I understand that the fighter pilots stayed away on purpose because they couldn't be sure that our gunners wouldn't shoot at them the same as any other airplane. Yeah. So, you know, during the excitement of combat, well, you might just be shooting at the wrong airplanes too. But like I said, I don't remember ever seeing planes flying escort with us. Yeah.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Hello.
Hi, Mr. Jim. My name's Sabrina Petervers. We met a couple years ago in Washington, D.C. for the American Veterans Center. How are you?
Oh.
You look wonderful.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Yeah.
Yes, and I'm sorry that my grandpa's not on this call. He actually, you and he shared time and talked about that February 3rd mission that Nancy mentioned. That was a really big mission for a lot of people, in fact. And he and you kind of decided based on your mission logs that he was one of your little friends he had escorted.
Okay, I see. So, okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
And you didn't see him because he was fending off the enemy for you, hopefully. We're hoping that's
Yeah.
what he was doing.
Yeah.
But he keeps the bombers in high regard, and I think anybody who met him last month at the Story Fest remembers that he does feel that the bomber crews were very well, very brave and very strong. And I know when I met you in Washington and we held hands, I felt the same way about you when I met you in person. So
Yeah.
I appreciate everything that you've done for us. Thank you so much.
Well,
Same
thank you.
for Mr. Enlow, same for my sweetheart, Mr. Dick Enlow. I really love you guys so much. Thank you for being there for us when our country needed you so much.
Oh, well, I hope there's another group that are replacing us also. So,
I hope so too.
yeah. So,
We seem to do pretty well on that front, turning out new veterans that distinguish themselves. So
yeah, I understand that the services are finally catching up with their recruiting requirements and things. So things are looking better. Yeah.
We hope so. Thank you. Thank you for letting me share.
You're welcome. Thank you.
yeah,
Thank
thank
you
you.
for putting us in touch with with Mr. Inlow, Sabrina. We appreciate
Yes.
you.
Of course.
And I just unmuted him so he could say hello to you.
Oh,
Hi. We text every day, all day long, so it's good to see your face in person again. Appreciate
Nice
you.
to see you too, dear.
All right. We'll talk soon.
I hope so.
okay.
Thank you.
By the way, Dick, I love the cat on the back of the chair there. That's quite a nice effect.
That's Macbeth.
Macbeth.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I didn't know he was there.
Hey, listen, Jim, I pulled up a few pictures of you during the war, or a few pictures that you might find interesting. Let me
Okay.
share these.
I know there wasn't too many pictures taken, you know. I know there was a few guys that had cameras, but seemed to me they always kept saying, you know, don't take pictures because the wrong people might catch them or something. And yeah, so
Let me see. Did I do that right? Are you
well,
is,
that looks like Florida or something. Yeah.
yeah, let me try that again here. I think I somehow didn't get the right here we are. Why am I having trouble finding this? Just a second. I'm sorry, fellas.
Okay.
Here we are. Okay. I hope I've got that right. Is that you, Dick? Or I mean, Jim?
Why?
Is that a picture of you?
I don't think so. No, I don't. I'm just working off of a phone here, and
How about
that-
this one? Can you see it?
well, I see a guy standing by a box or something,
Next
and
to, next to a Jeep. You're on your phone, so it's a lot harder for you to see this than us. I'm sorry.
yeah,
I think that's him.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is too. Yeah, I pulled it off of the 100th Bomb Group Foundation website.
Oh, is that right?
Yes.
Because yeah, I've only found a few pictures where I'm in on the website where there's I think there's 7 of us crew that are standing in front of a B-17 or something, and there's not a whole more than that I've seen. Yeah.
No, I don't have that one. Here's a few pictures, though, I thought I'd show you.
Oh yeah.
Because
Dropping the food. Yeah, that was
What is that? What's that a picture of?
we're dropping the food in Holland.
Oh, drop a food drop. Okay.
Yeah, that's the food drop there.
Wow.
I don't know if you can. I don't know. You can you read what the letter was on the tail on that one, or I can't see it.
Well, D.
It is a D. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Peggy Schulberg told me you were very, very proud of these missions to relieve the Dutch. So I just
Well, you know, the wonderful thing about it is that I'm still in correspondence with some of the people over there. I got a letter from a high school kid this year, and then at Christmas time, I got a little notice that came from the organization over in Holland. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I still get some recognition. And years ago, they had sent me a box of goodies from Holland, so that was pretty nice. Yeah.
How many of those missions did you fly? Do you remember?
I flew 2. I think our squadron flew 7 missions, but one thing about them was that everybody wanted to go on those missions because they were like a sightseeing tour, and that's about what it was. Because you'd see all the people on the ground, waving back at you, and you'd see the German soldiers standing on the ground just watching us go by, and so it was an interesting sightseeing tour in a sense. Yeah.
I'm sure it was a really positive feeling to do something to help these people who were starving versus
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
having to bomb,
Yeah.
different sites and destroy things.
Yeah.
I saw this picture on the 100th Bomb Group Foundation. This is Bucky Clevin coming back to the base.
Oh, I see. Oh.
Oh, just
Okay, you mean after he had been released or something? Yeah.
after he'd been released from the POW camp.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
I was wondering if you were there. Did you meet Bucky Clevin? Did you know what a sort of legend he was in the 100th Bomb Group from the early days?
Well, I knew his name. I never met him personally, and of course, I never really knew any of the squadron commanders until I think it was after the war. I had gotten quite a conversation with one of the ones that had been the commander of the 349th, but I never had actually met the other ones. Although I did talk to Rosenthal a couple times at our reunions, just say hi or something. But yeah, I never really knew any of them. Yeah.
So you were flying when Rosie Rosenthal was still flying because Rosie
Yeah.
never wanted to stop, right?
Yeah,
So
right. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
what did you ever get to meet Rosie Rosenthal during the war? What was it like being around Rosie?
Well, actually, I don't remember any conversation about him, even though he had must have been well known in the unit. But of course, he was commander of what, the 418th at the time or something. So, yeah, I didn't really know him or hadn't heard too much about him until it was after the war that I heard about his record and whatnot. That was the best information I had about him.
Yeah.
Some of the, of course, one of the best stories I know about him was that something that happened after the war, but his son had given a talk at our last reunion, talked about his dad, and he said his dad had, after the war, he had become a lawyer again, and then he'd gone in to be at the Nuremberg trial. And he says his dad was, they went over on ship, and he says his dad was standing watching at the gangplank, people coming up there, and he says, this beautiful lady come walking up the gangplank, and he said, I got to know her. And immediately he introduced himself, and he told his son, he says, I don't know if I was seasick or lovesick all the way across the ocean then, he said. But the two of them got married while the trials were still going on before they even came back to Minnesota. I mean, back to New York. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought that was one of the best stories I heard about Rosenthal. Yeah. And of course, the nice thing about talking to his son had been at the dedication of the memorial in Normandy, and he says that it was really a beautiful representative of his dad. He said it was a good reproduction. He said, yeah. Yeah.
I've been really lucky. I've spoken to Dan Rosenthal a couple of times and
Right. Yeah.
trying to convince him to come on the program and talk about his father.
Yeah.
Listen, I have one more slide I want to show, and then let's open this up to any conversation from the audience. I've kind of hogged the time here. I apologize. Let me put the share back on and move to this slide. That's a lot of medals, Jim.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Tell us about some of them, or all of them. Do you recognize?
Well, yeah. I can't really see the looking at my phone. I can't really look at the size. Yeah. Too much. Yeah.
And someone put in the chat that you just received was it the French Legion?
Legion of Honor. Yeah.
Honor.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a couple of years ago. Yeah. A guy from a consul down in Chicago came up here and gave me the Legion of Honor. Yeah.
Well, all well deserved.
Thank you.
So let's see if there's some other questions. Todd, anybody put anything else in the chat that doesn't violate our moral concepts? Any
Glenn, I
questions?
did find his service photo of him if you want to share that.
Yeah.
I put that in the chat.
Do you want to put it up, or you want me to do
Here,
that?
I'll do it right now.
Oh, there you go.
Uh, now
That's Jim.
that's a picture of me now.
Yeah, that's
that's-
definitely you.
Yeah. Mm.
How old are you in this picture?
I was 21 at that time. Yeah. I think that was, you see, I've got the victory medal on there, so that was after the war had ended in Europe, because I don't think they had that victory medal until after that war. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Incredibly handsome, incredibly young. I think Nancy,
Well,
all the 100 bomb group guys were handsome.
definitely young too. Yeah. I had a little conversation with some younger ladies, and they had watched the movie Masters of the Air, and they were shocked at the way the people were talking on them in the movie. And of course, I saw the movie, and I thought at the time we didn't use that conversation when we were over there. They used a lot of the F words in the film, but I don't remember that. That wasn't anything we talked about. We never used that word. Once in a while, somebody would use it, but very, very seldom. So, he said the soundtrack was kind of what brought up to date, so it'd be more like conversation nowadays or something. But yeah.
What did you think of Masters of the Air in total, overall?
Well, I thought it was pretty good. Of course, one of the things being kind of a technical guy, they were flying F-series planes and that, and of course I was looking at when it showed like Crosby at the desk there or something like that. I was looking at the equipment that was around him, and I thought it wasn't quite the same as the way we had it in the G models. So, and of course, looking at a film like that, they kind of condense a lot, get a whole lot of stuff in at the same time. So it gets pretty exciting. That never happened in real life, because you'd have your exciting moments, and then after that it was kind of bore time or nap time or whatever you want to call it. That didn't have the activities that was going on in the film.
Yeah. What about during your experience there at Thorpe Abbott's? What about your recreation time? Did you go to London? Did you go to any of the other English cities? What was that like?
Well, actually, when I think back of it, I got kind of in I guess in a rut or something. I went to London. As far as I can remember, I was down in London about 4 or 5 times or something during that period. And of course, most of that I think was after the war was over. I think I'd been down in London a couple of times during when it was blacked out, and it was everything was. All the people were walking about the British carriage, what they called torches, what they called flashlights, and that was about the light you'd see and whatnot. And I remember the English beer. Most of the time, the first time I'd run into English beer, they had what they called milds and bitters, and neither one of them was much more than dishwater. But and I remember. They right away they said, "Well, look for a place that serves a lager." So we'd when we'd go into London, we'd always check whatever bar was serving a lager, and of course the lager was very much similar to an American beer at the time. Yeah.
Only warm.
Well, no, they would bring it up from the cellar. Well, surprisingly, that's the way I like my beer now. Just bring it up from the cellar. So. So I keep my beer downstairs, and then when I have one, I just bring it up. I don't refrigerate it. I keep some in the refrigerator because it seems to me that everybody that comes in the house, they want a cold beer. They don't want something like I like. I think it's got a better flavor when it's a little other than real cold. Yeah.
I see Scott Masters. You have your hand up. Let's unmute Scott. Huh?
I'm I'm already unmuted. I have a beer-related question, so it fits in right on this topic. I was wondering if he ever saw the old Burgess Meredith training film, the one about how to behave in an English pub.
Boy, it doesn't bring to mind really, no. No, that I don't recall it right offhand. It's possible I may have seen it, but I don't recall it. Yeah.
Okay, just curious. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah. Mhm.
I think
So
he-
do they refer to a special beer in that movie or no? Probably not. Do they refer to a special beer in that movie?
They don't refer to a special beer. It's more about they were worried about Americans misbehaving in the pubs, and so it's
Oh,
just a classic old World War II training propaganda film.
yeah, yeah. Well, of course, yeah. It was quite, you know, it was quite different when if you'd go into a public in like in a small town of or where we were at Dish. It was a small town that was close to Thorpe Abbots, and usually they had almost separate units for the female and the female side. So yeah, you didn't get a mix like that. But of course, you'd go into town to a pub in town, of course, and then you'd get some wild stuff going on. I remember one time in England, I just about got socked in the head by a Scotchman because I was kidding him too much about what they wear under their skirts. See. So,
Who else? I see Justin Miller. Is he unmuted?
Jim, my question
yeah.
takes beer to another level, but really it has nothing to do with beer. In navigating during World War II, what did you have to navigate on besides a map and a compass?
Oh well, of course we had a regular map, but our basic piece of accurate navigation was a piece of equipment that the British had called what the heck did they call it? Anyway, it was very similar to our American equipment that used a cathode ray tube, and we would you know you get a radio signals from a couple of different places, and you could plot them on a chart, and this was a very accurate method of for the actually for about 200 miles or so, and then you'd get beyond the range of that, and then of course you know our basic navigation skill was dead reckoning. So when you were especially in Germany, you know you had a lot of weather, so you had a lot of cloud cover below you and things like that. So you couldn't lots of times you couldn't get a good ground fix or anything on anything. You know, they had in navigation school. I think we went to navigation school. I think it was 16 weeks, and then we spent. I think we spent probably at least 12 weeks doing sestral navigation, studying the stars and the moon and things like that. And of course, once we got to England, why we never took a sextant out of the bag anymore. It was because you know you're flying in the daytime, and whereas using celestial navigation, that's mostly nighttime stuff. So and so it was yeah, never used sextant again after that. Yeah.
Jim. Oh, I'm sorry.
I sort of asked that because it sounds like nothing much changed between World War II and Vietnam when my navigation was a mag compass, a good map, and looking out the window, and a thing called ADF if I could tie it onto one of the 3 radio stations in Vietnam.
Yeah, yeah. Once in a while we could get a radio station, but lots of times the Germans would block them, and the British were never really sending out too many radio signals because the Germans could use those also. So it was seldom we had a good radio signal over there. Yeah.
I think we sort of learned that after Pearl Harbor when the Japanese honed in on Honolulu.
Yeah. So,
my other comment was you talked about the equipment being different in the movie. I had the privilege of working with a gentleman named Hal Moore on some projects and saw the initial preview of We Were Soldiers.
Oh, okay.
2 seats behind it, and we get up to walk out to go to the cocktail reception. And I said, Colonel General, I'm just really amazed. You did a great job with the movie, but those were the wrong damn helicopters.
Oh, yeah.
Look at
Okay.
me, Captain. Where do you think I was going to get A and B models? The only thing I could get were H models.
Yeah, well, sure, yeah, yeah.
So that's what happens in the movies.
Well, they made a couple models, full size models to use in the movie and whatnot. I talked to one of the guys that had built the model, and I was asking him if he could, he didn't know what they're going to do with the models anymore now that the movie's over. And I asked him if he could send one of them up to our base at Thorpe Abbotts, and he said, "Well, the only problem is you got to keep those models indoors because they're not built to be outdoors at all." So. Yeah. And of course, they don't have any hangar or anything up at the old base up there. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Brad, you had a question about
I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you just because Greg Yost has been waiting for a while also.
sorry, go ahead, Greg.
Well, thank you so much. This is a great program. I'm a little off topic. I'm going to go back to both of the guests, both of the World War II guests. Hope they're both on, and thank you so much for your presentations. Since you were, Peleliu, of course, was late 44, and our 100th here is late 44 into 45. Were you following what was going on the other side of the world? In other words, in the Pacific, were you aware of the Battle of the Bulge and the invasion into Germany and the likely end of the war there? Similarly, in Europe, were you following the Philippines, Iwo Jima, Okinawa? And then I guess, Jim, you sort of answered my question in a way. Right after the war ended, you said you went to London a lot, but were you planning, training, preparing to go over to the Pacific in the summer of 45? So what were you doing? What were you each doing following the other side of the world?
Well, yeah, of course, our biggest source of news and whatnot about the whole war was the Stars and Stripes, and of course, the Armed Forces Radio would bring us up to date on some of the stuff that was going on in the Pacific and whatnot. But yeah, and then after the war, there was just a lot of speculation about what was going to happen. We thought maybe that they were going to put us into B-24s and have us fly over to the Far East because with the B-24s, but that never happened. And of course, if the war had gone on a little bit longer, kind of, they had already talked about an invasion of Japan, I think in November of 45 or something. And I'm sure if we would have been still there at that time, they would have had something for us to do. Yeah. So.
I don't think I'm on, am I?
You are on, Dick. Yes, you are.
Okay. Well, we did not know a thing in the Pacific about what was going on in Europe at all. I've enjoyed reading about it since, but we did not.
Well, I suppose, yeah, you probably didn't get a good newspaper like the Stars and Stripes over in the Pacific.
I'm afraid we did not on the little islands. No,
yeah,
no,
right, yeah,
not even
right.
any radio or anything like that.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Brad, you have a question?
Yeah. Hey, Jim, I want to go back to your opening comments about your duties on the B-17. Did you ever get training on the 50 caliber machine guns? And did you ever get a chance to fire them? And if you did you hit anything?
Well, that last question, of course, would be pretty tough to answer. But no, the only training I got is with the other gunners. Had showed me how to load it and you put a belt in and what the safety was and things like that. And then we did during our conversion or training, learning to fly the B-17, we did some low altitude where we'd shoot the guns at ground targets. But that was about the extent of any training I ever had with it. And of course, as far as firing a gun, the one time I had an opportunity where I could actually see the pilot sitting in the German 109 I had the gun on safety, so I didn't didn't get a chance to fire then. The next time, some 262 jets passed right over us, and I was able to take a parting shot at them. But whether or not I hit them, I have no idea at all. I thought I had them dead in my sights, but then I've listened to some guys talk about lead time and things like that when you're flying in an airplane. How it's different than if you're on the ground shooting at a target too. So I don't have any idea whether or not my shells hit that plane or not. Yeah.
Okay. Did they make you clean the guns if you fired them, or was that left up to somebody else?
No, the ground crew would always take care of it. I don't know if it was our actually gunners would clean up the guns for me, but I never had to clean them up. Yeah. So.
Good to be an officer.
I guess so.
Other questions, Todd? I've got one if no one else has one.
Yeah, I'm going to ask Joseph Dunphy. You put an interesting question there in the chat, and then we could go to Beth. Joseph, if you want to unmute. Okay, we're going to go to Beth.
Jim, I just wondered which you said you were in one of the college training units.
Yeah.
When you were in the cadet, which was that in Lincoln? Was that in Nebraska too?
Yeah, it was in Nebraska. It was a little town called Hastings, Nebraska. That was just farther west of Lincoln there. Yeah.
That's where my grandpa did his cadet training as well. He washed out though, so he was a tailor.
Yeah. That was kind of interesting. Being in a unit there where you had the co-eds and everything. You were going to school. You didn't necessarily go to class with them, but they were on the campus and things like that. That was kind of interesting.
Interesting how, Jim?
Classes? Yeah.
Interesting how exactly?
Well, most of our classes, we did, seems to me we were forever doing classes on aircraft recognition, but we did classes on weather and kind of similar things as that. Yeah, some things on, stars and more or less something that had something to do with, a lot of classes on weather, as far as I remember. Yeah.
Earlier today, Dick told us that he didn't see any women until after, except was it the two that came with Bob Hope, Dick? That you said those were the only two women you saw during your entire wartime experience.
Oh, is that right? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I had a friend that was flying over in Japan. He was on a patrol boat. Flying patrol boat, and he says, that when they had when we were doing the victory deal and after the war was over, he says, I know you guys in over in England or over in the States who were dancing with the women, but he says we didn't see any over here. So, yeah, he was in the Pacific also.
So Dick was, just to finish that thought, Dick got to see Bob Hope on Peleliu. Is that right, Dick?
Really?
That's right.
Yeah.
Bob and Jerry and Francis Langford and Patsy Thomas.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I
Right.
remember all those names. Yeah. No, I don't remember. Seemed to me just before I had come to the base, they had somebody, Glenn Miller or somebody came to the base and was playing there, but I think it was before I got to the base, so I didn't get to see him. And there was no notables came to the base as far as I know. Yeah.
Glenn Miller didn't live too long during the war, did he?
No, he was no, he died in that plane crash. Yeah. No, isn't that the one? It went down in the channel.
That's right.
Yeah. I don't remember the date. Todd, do you remember that? Was that after D-Day? I'm going to say late 44, early 45, but I don't
guess September 44, but I don't remember. I don't know.
Yeah. It's a program we should do, is something on the Glenn Miller tragedy. Yeah.
Oh, Greg Yost, thank you. December 15th, 1944.
There you go.
Okay.
Just about the time you arrived, Jim.
Yeah. Around middle of December, I arrived at the 100th Bomb Group. Yeah.
I have one question I've been waiting to ask if no one else is pending, Todd. So I've had the great privilege to talk to quite a few 8th Air Force veterans. And one of the things that they've always emphasized, and in my reading, how precarious, how dangerous takeoff was, because you have hundreds of planes taking off in a relatively small area there in eastern England.
Yeah.
And I know Nancy will appreciate this, I think, because the name of the 100th Bomb Group Foundation newsletter is Splasher 6.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
What was Splasher 6 and how did you use that during takeoff, Jim?
Well, basically that was just a radio station, as far as I know, that was used for assembly.
Right.
I'm making a guess. Nancy probably knows more about it than I do, but I thought it was where we'd take off, and then the planes would keep circling that until they got back into formation, and then they'd take off from there. And of course, that was what you'd coming back home again. Well, that's what you'd home in on too. So, yeah.
Radio beacon. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Did you have any close calls in taking off and forming up with the group?
That was one of the scariest missions that we had, I think, because I remember one time there was so much cloud cover, we kept circling around. I think we got up to close to 15,000 feet before we broke out of the, and during that circling around the splasher, I could remember a couple of different times, shadows would come kind of flying by you, and you'd think, "Oh my God, that was an airplane," So, but yet you'd see that close to it, that we'd come to another airplane. But I know there were stories about once in a while about some of these planes colliding during assembly like that, but I don't recall anything that happened to our group then. Yeah.
Okay, Todd, where else you want to go with this? I'm fresh out of questions.
Well, we have Bob, aka Marsha Flage, who has his hand up. Hi, Bob. How are you?
Yes, I'm great. After rehab and 4 weeks at home, I'm great. My question is, how long did it take to form up? Because it seems like the planes that took off early would be lower on fuel coming back. So was there any compensation for those guys, or did they still come back tailbone Charlie?
Well, no, we all had a certain time. You'd get up into your position and whatnot. Now the group that was adjacent to you, they would have a different. They might take off like 5 or 10 minutes earlier than you would take off. They would get into their assembly and then get assembled up, and then by the time you got assembled up, you would follow in behind them, because we'd all kind of follow one another going into Germany. And so you'd get into actually like a lineup that way, and the takeoff times were arranged to fit in with that lineup. So, like I said, you might have the squadron or the group that was right next door, you might take off 10 minutes ahead of you, because to take care of that extra time that goes between the two groups when you get into the final lineup. Yeah. So that's where the timing would come in, I think. Yeah.
But the tail end planes weren't in more jeopardy with their lack of fuel, or 10 minutes less fuel?
Well, no, they wouldn't necessarily. The tail end guy might have taken off an hour after you took off, because if you got say 1,000 planes lined up in a row, the
Right.
first group was probably practically back at the base by the time the second group got to the target or something. So yeah, so it was all depending on a whole lot of timing and whatnot. So
I see.
yeah, so,
Good timing.
yeah.
I see.
We have a much younger navigator with us, Bob von Bargen. Hi, Bob.
Good evening. You started off, Todd, if you'll allow me to just add a little humor to the conversation. You started off the conversation about how people were selected for the positions, and you were saying that those with the highest level of intelligence were assigned as navigators, right?
Well, I don't know.
remember-
Yeah, I don't know.
No,
I don't know. Yeah,
this is a joke.
Okay.
Bear with me.
Okay. All right.
The and you know that some of that sparring goes on between crew positions and things like that. Well, I've created a masterpiece of art here that I'm going to show you, which I can remember seeing at Pease Air Force Base, where we had B-47s, and I was in KC-97s, as a navigator on KC-97s.
Yeah.
And they referred these were B-47 people spoofing themselves. And
Yeah.
they referred to the crew. Now, tell me if you can see this. I'm going to hold this up. They referred to this the B-47 crew as a big crew, right?
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
I have there a marvelously well-drawn image of a B-47, and you'll see the navigator sitting up in the front,
Yeah.
and the pilot's position and the co-pilot's position.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Some idiot put this thing up and referred to this as the big crew. That is
Oh.
to say, brains, idiot, gunner.
I thought I thought they did have somebody on board as a gunner there. So I think I thought they had another crewman on there, but I'm not sure.
You're far too serious.
Yeah. And then of course you used the term about selecting them, the one that was the most intelligent. Well, no, it was not necessarily the case. Sometimes people can just take tests and get good scores, and I was one of those people. I don't know how intelligent I was, but I could take a multi-choice question test and almost always get a good score on it. Yeah.
I can remember one time at Pittsburgh with the we converted to C-124s, and I was the squadron navigator, and so I had to get my people qualified ahead of time. Well, the wing commander was a wonderful, marvelous man, Colonel Reed, and Colonel Reed was just he was as good a commander as anybody ever put on in command.
Yeah.
And he was very, very proud of pilots and pilots this. And I can remember one time when in the transition where he was making a statement where he's saying, "And now I have we had 16 airplanes," and he said, "and now I have 12 aircraft commanders," at which time one of my smart aleck navigators said, "Yeah, and about 8 of them are navigators." And he didn't appreciate that humor. So, no.
Thank you, Bob.
Bob, yeah.
Mhm.
Well, this has gone, frankly, Jim, it's been fantastic to have you on. I really didn't anticipate us having such a long conversation today based on just our few minutes on the cell phone yesterday, but it's been an absolute pleasure. You're
Okay.
a treasure. I wish I had your energy at 102, and I'm only 72. So,
Well, yeah, outside of a bad leg, if the leg was good, why I'd really be in good shape. I could still be dancing, but but my eyes are starting to go, and one of the things I miss the most is it gets hard reading now when you have to have a big magnifying glass. It gets hard reading, and of course, like I said, I miss the dancing also. It's one of the I figure that's one thing everybody should do. It's one way to get together with the ladies. Yeah.
to dance, yes.
Yeah, the dance. Yeah.
You're the greatest, Jim.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, I just want to remind people that we don't have a program on Thursday night. April 2nd, we are taking off for the Easter holiday, but we will be back on Monday night, and we're going to have an open conversation with Gulf War veterans. This is a follow-up to a program that we did on Desert Shield and Desert Storm in February, and we didn't even come close to getting to those stories that were in the Zoom room. So we thought we would regroup on Monday, April 6th at 7 p.m., 1 week from tonight, and really invite just open conversation with those who served in 1990, 1991. I also want to let people know we are sending our next magazine to the printer. This is the cover, and you'll notice something peculiar about the veteran who's depicted on the cover. He's he's a veteran of the American Revolution. This is a photo of him taken over 100 years old. In fact, I think he was 102. Taken in 1864, this photo was, and he shared his story. And we kind of took this picture and the stories that we collected, that we researched of our first veterans, those who served in the American Revolution. And so this entire issue are stories from 1775 to 1783, and they're firsthand stories. And I'll be really interested when you get it and start reading it, because I'm very struck by how similar the stories are in the American Revolution to the stories that we hear tonight. I mean, it's the weapons are different, the periods are different, but a lot of the feelings and a lot of the sense of pride, the sense of camaraderie, the sense of fear, is the same. And so I'll be interested to kind of share these stories and incorporate them into this larger body of veteran stories that we have been listening to at the Veterans Breakfast Club for 18 years now.
Well,
So
that sounds like a great issue, especially for the 250th anniversary. Yeah.
that's the idea. And Jim, if we have your address, we could send you a copy.
Okay.
I hope we will get your address, and same with you, Dick, also, and to anybody who doesn't receive VBC magazine.
Well, yeah, I could, there's a couple of people I meet with every other Wednesday that I could probably get a copy from them also, because I've gotten a few copies from that time to time, yeah, and them, yeah.
Very
So,
good. Okay,
yeah.
yeah, the Minnesota crew. That's right.
Yeah, right, yeah. Mhm.
Well, thank you, Jim. Thank you, Dick. Thank you, Glenn and Beth, for
Okay.
hosting tonight. Glenn, final words?
No, it's been an absolute pleasure, unexpected pleasure, Jim. 24 hours ago, didn't know anything about you, and now we've had this great last hour and a half. We're honored to have you on. Dick Inlow, same with you, and we'll be in touch and set a date to tell your story in more detail. Thank you so very much, all.
Okay, thank you.
Good night.
Good night.